All right. Hey, everybody, welcome. Thank you so much for coming today on the last day of SAS Innovate. I know it's hard to believe we're already at the end of the week. I hope you all had a good time last night at the party. I know I'm maybe feeling maybe a little bit motion sickness after those roller coasters. I hope you all had a good time, though. So my name is Joe Madden. I'm a product manager for SAS Viya Workbench. We'll be introducing my colleague Joseph Henry here in a minute. We'll be walking through some demos, but first we just want to bring you today a bunch of updates and give you an update of where we're sitting with SAS Viya Workbench. Workbench was featured a ton at Innovate across the way. A lot of these are available on-demand recordings. One of our customers, Joe Matisse, gave a talk from his perspective of getting started with Workbench, which I think was really amazing hearing just practical steps of how it worked from his own words. So definitely take it from him, and hopefully you'll see that up online. So today, we just want to quickly share how has Workbench evolved. We went live with this product about a year ago, and we've made a bunch of enhancements since then. So we want to make sure that you've got awareness of just, here's the latest. A big thing we're going to talk about today is Azure Marketplace. And then, of course, we're going to do some demos. At SAS, anytime we meet with senior leadership, we have to do demos. Dr. Goodnight, he demands it. When we talk, we tee things up with demos, and that's what we're going to do today. So you're going to see a lot of that content. There's the quick rundown of what you'll see. You'll see a lot of features and some analytics too. In case you're, though, wondering, and we've got this question, I do see a lot of folks in the room who maybe stopped by the booth and we heard the question all week, well, what is Viya Workbench? How is this different from Viya? Viya Workbench is, we think about it as the on-ramp into the Viya ecosystem. If you're on SAS 9 today and you try Workbench, what we hope is that you view that as, hey, I've never been in this home before, but I sure know the floor plan. I know the layout of this house. This looks familiar to me. That's what we've deliberately done with VS Code to make it a very tailored experience that looks and feels very much like SAS 9, including some of the keyboard shortcuts that you might be familiar with, like a F2 to view your ODS output in full screen. Viya Workbench is a bit different from Viya, though, in how it's installed. It's all through the marketplace, and we'll walk through how the marketplace works. But the big thing here is that your data stays private. Yes, it's cloud native, and it's all from the ground up, but your data remains private, and we know that that is at the key for so many of our customers. There will be a future iteration of Workbench where it's all software as a service, consumption-based in the cloud. But for today, we know that this is where many of our customers are at. The on-prem journey to in the cloud can be done simpler with Workbench. Some of the feedback we heard first when we went live was, hey, I need Workbench more just available closer to home for me. What we started setting up was control planes, connections points across the globe for you, so your data remains as near as possible to your home location. Then over the past year, we added a feature called cross-region support. Cross-region is pretty cool, where if you're in US West, you keep your data in US West, and you only authenticate through US East, but everything else is done in your local area. And especially for our customers in Europe, this is critical. That my data really prefer to not have to leave borders, even though those things may be getting more complicated. The point here is if you see a region that you'd actually prefer that's not on this list, we're taking your feedback. We're always looking to add and expand. It's any AWS coverage that could be available, we want to support it. So please contact your account rep if you'd like more information on it. From a practical standpoint, we are trying to advertise this because it is a very subtle setting when you get started. But to do the cross-region connection, to keep that data sovereignty tight, you use as you get started, you click a checkbox. It is that simple, and we're really excited that's available. We're going to be introducing the Azure offering. We announced it a bit on stage, and it'll be available this July. We have private previews that are available now, so if you're interested in Azure is where you're at, we'd love to get you part of that private preview program. What that means is you would be able to, rather than going to a website and kind of using sample data, you'd actually could install it yourself, see it live, use your data, really get to kick the tires with it. So we hope you can take us up on that offer. We'll also be holding a public preview before this all goes live, and couldn't be more excited. One of the biggest things that we're fired up about is with Azure is that we'll be having a public plan. Currently today when we sell, we offer private marketplace or private offers, which really kind of, if you're not familiar with the cloud journey and purchase software through your sales rep, it's very similar to that. You can negotiate price and you get a private offer, and it's all done very simple. But we've heard the feedback. We just want to click and go through. So you'll be able to have just a public offer, you click through, and you can accept the plan. So within less than an hour, you could go from maybe wanting to try Workbench to actually you're up and the point of configuring and setting up your SSO. And for actually your SSO wizards, this is pretty simple. All you're doing is following typical enterprise standard connections, and your users are getting started right away. Of course, though, if you do need to rely upon the private plan for Azure, we do have that as an option. Of course, that's always going to be available, but we couldn't be more stoked for the public plan. The public plan really does represent some of the newest things that we're doing at SAS, and at this point, I do want to cut the commercial part and get to the demos, because Workbench is all about being able to have developer productivity. And at the end of the day, our colleague here, Joseph Henry, has made Workbench into something that is going to be growing and improving over time. But as someone I've seen work closely with our customers, feedback's at the center of everything. And what I'm showing on my screen, this has evolved from a very small idea. So Joseph, I'd like to introduce you, have you come up and walk through some of those new features. And if everyone can give a round of applause for Joseph.
Thanks, Joe. So this wasn't originally my session, and Joe said he'd give me at least 15 minutes of filler at first, and that was not 15 minutes. But I know a few things about Workbench. So I'm going to walk you through some of the features that we have added recently. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to jump into a Workbench. Last year, we released the SAS Viya Python package. This was our goal of this was to make the SAS Analytics a native experience in Python. Over the past 6 or 7 years, we've released packages like SAS Pi and SAS SWAT that made connections to SAS servers. That was really useful for running analytic workloads in SAS sessions, but it wasn't native to Python. The SAS Viya package changed that by putting native analytics directly into the Python kernel, right? And this is really good, right? But it's all just machine learning modeling packages. Now we're going to be adding more and more of the actions that we developed in Viya to bring convenience and confidence to your data. The first thing I'm going to show you is cardinality, assess, and assess bias. These are things that are really useful for learning what your data looks like and what your model looks like. Bias is a huge problem in modeling. When you just look at accuracy and precision, you can't really tell, is this model biased? So one thing we can do, first thing we can do is look at cardinality of a, oh, this is not the right demo. Hold on. Let me run this one first. Like I said, this isn't my session. I think Holden O'Neill is actually the guy that is on the thing. So if you don't like it, that's who I am. Just saying. Let's run through this one first. With cardinality, it's very important to know what variables have a lot of duplicates, what you might need to trim, and you can even tell so for here, we can easily see I can get the levels of age, and I've got 5 individual levels of age throughout this entire data set. And from there I can say, maybe my model is biased from age or gender or something like that. Down here, I can run my model, I predict, and after I fit, now I can run the assess. And this is a lot like the sklearn assess, but in the SAS one, it does all the calculations at the same time. So you're not doing individual pieces, you get all the information you need right there. So we're just putting convenience in it. You're not getting more than just that with this, but with the SAS Viya package, we're trying to make it as easy as possible. And in SAS, the procs do a lot of things for you. We're bringing a little bit of that into the Python world. Assess bias does a little bit more. So over here, we're saying, okay, we want to take the age group of our churn model and see if that is biased throughout the model predictions. And here we can see that the predicted probability through age is about 15% plus or minus. So even though our accuracy is about 86% through this model, we could be as high as 95 or as low as 75 through this. So this might mean that maybe we should balance our data based on age to get a better accurate prediction. Or maybe that's not one of the variables we're going to be predicting. Knowing your data, knowing your model is very important, and the SAS Viya package is going to give you really easy ways to put that right in your face so that you can make the best model and the cleanest data possible. The next thing about learning your data is visualizations, right? This is good, this is a lot of information, but actually seeing something in a chart or a graph makes it much more clear. So we're also bringing the SAS ODS the output delivery system into native Python. SAS has always had an extremely rich output delivery system, and putting that in native Python is going to be extreme convenience. Our charts and graphs are light years ahead of Matplotlib and Plotly. I'm putting that easy access here because the actions are making these available natively. So all we're really doing is just pulling the information, putting it in the notebook. So this is kind of an example. All I really have to do is do display on the model details, and I get lots of information. I can choose which graph I want. I can also get tabular output. It's really, really easy to do. So like with here, I'm saying I just want the v-plot of this principal component analysis. Let me show the one that was probably supposed to show. Yeah. Let's run through this. And one of the things I've actually been doing recently is I write a lot of documentation. And making visuals for documentation can be a pain. With this package, I can just save graphs that I've created from SAS output and just plug them directly into READMEs. So here I'm saving this to a PNG, and I can just embed it directly into a README here. Not that one, this one. All right. And it can be dark, it can be light, so the actual display, I'm losing the word right now, can be changed. Ideally, this would be, so if I change the, how I want Visual Studio Code to look, ideally that would just trigger this. That's not there yet, but we can trigger it through an environment variable, and I'll show you that a little bit later. Another thing we're adding is more modeling algorithms. So the network analytics has always been a huge part of SAS ML, and it's probably the fastest in the world. I mean, we have benchmarks that show that our network algorithms are like 2 to 5 times faster than most of the open source ones right now. And it is extremely useful. So right now, with the current release of Workbench, we're providing 19 actions in our network analytics package, and next month we're going to be adding 8 more. So everything from find least path through graph to combining nodes, all that stuff. So if you use network analytics for anything, you can really take advantage of the SAS network package now available in Python. And all of this is available through procs in SAS code right now, but if you want to take advantage of it in Python, it is there. And that's really our goal, is to give you the best analytics possible where you want to use it. So that's what I'm going through with kind of the new packages in Python. Let's say about configuring your workbench. So with this one, I've got, configured this to have a storage volume, and I have downloaded some data onto it. Well, during the course of preparing for this session, me and Joe and Holden, we had a GitHub repository that we were committing to on a daily basis. So like right here, like I have a change that I want to commit. So I do commit here, and then, it errored out. Why is this? Well, because I hadn't put my username or email in there. One of the things with containerized workloads is that once you're done, anything that's not persisted goes away. And so if I set get email, so what I need to do here is do this, right? Like set my username and my email so that Git knows what to push in the comments, right? I can do this pretty easily by, if I go out to storage here and do new volume and create a home volume, I can then add an SSH key there and set all those global variables. There's many reasons why you might not want a home directory. It's very convenient for many use cases, but in this case, like me and Joe, we were bouncing through different development environments and different servers, and so that home directory wasn't being transferred. So I ran into this problem a lot. Well, one of the things that one of the new features really kind of saved a bit of time for me was setting environment variables. Like I said before with the display settings, ideally if I changed my theme to light, then the ODS graphics would be light. If I change it to dark, they would be dark. Right now there's not a trigger there because UI development sometimes takes a long time. But I can go here let's just, so let me stop this first. I'm going to look at the settings. So we've added the ability to add environment variables globally to your workbench. So I've got the graphics theme for ODS set to dark. I can easily change this to light, and when I rerun, it's going to be light. Like I said, in a very near future release, this is going to be automatic. But right now, there's no sense in not letting you trigger stuff. There's things in SAS that have been historically set by environment variables. I can set that here and boot the session directly or globally and set these environment variables. Right here, I can set get environment variables. So like get author name, I'm going to change this back to my name. Now if I run this again, I'm not going to get prompted for that. Workbench makes it really easy to do these logins for GitHub and things because it's all web. I'll be redirected to a web page, I'll log in, copy and paste the token, authorize my account, and it just works. But things like this that can be an inconvenience, you can just set them here and it just works. We can do other things like set the timeout, and so this is just a way for kind of power users to make use of the system. So I'm going to actually show one more thing. Another thing that we've added is the ability to add additional volumes. So when Workbench launched, we launched with two types of storage that you could use, block storage and distributed storage. Block storage is typically very fast. You have some kind of either SSD or NVMe that your cloud provider hooks up the network, and you can get between like 1,000 and 10,000 gigabits per second. But it's only mountable in one workbench or pod at a time, right? Because those are called read-write ones. Distributed storage is like NFS. We can mount it across multiple pods, multiple zones, and it just works. That is a slower storage and can be more expensive the more you read and write. There's use cases for both, but now we've added the ability to add external NFS servers. And really to make advantage of that, we want to be able to add more than one volume here. So I've got this shared volume I'm just going to add here. I can add as many as I want, and these all just get mounted under the workspaces folder. I'm going to click OK and just relaunch this. So now I have changed my workbench to do a different environment variable. I've added a different mount. There is a little bit of setup involved with NFS because you have to expose a port in the NFS server you've got, and then we add a driver to your data plane. But it's not super difficult, and once it's set up, it just kind of works. So here, I've changed that variable, and now I can commit, and I'm not going to get any errors, right? And I can just push. So I like to just show like practical examples of like why I would use this feature. And I mean, I'm not a data scientist, but I'm a developer, and I use this all the time for development. So a lot of the things that we put in are like, okay, we're using this product for development. What have we seen in our work that we want to make easier and more convenient for you? And I really want to hear your feedback on this product. Like if you see something that it irritates you, like feel free to like drop me an email or open a support ticket and be like, this is annoying, or I'd rather see this. We might completely ignore you, but it might be a really good thing. I mean, all I'm really saying here is that we want this product to be driven by developers because it really is a product made by developers for developers. Kind of a little bit of a history. The initial code name for this project was called Power User Programming. And so it was called PUP. We actually had some really cool phrases for that, like the Python integration was called PupPy, right? And a cluster was called a kennel. I mean, I don't know, it was fun. But it was really designed for people who want hands-on keyboards, writing code, and developing, right? It was SAS for power users. It turned into Workbench because marketing hates us to have fun. But we still have that mission of really putting the power of SAS into the user's hands. So I mean, this is still a power user programming platform. I totally lost my train of thought there. Okay, so I'm going to open up a terminal and show you the workspace. So I'm going to CD out to upper folder. And I mean, blame Joe. I am trying to fill time because he was supposed to take 15 minutes. See here, right, so I have 2 volumes mounted now. And I can open these from file open, but I can also just go up to my browser and then open that in a shared view. I can actually make a workspace from this, and then next time I open up, it can be opened up from that workspace, and I can have all my volumes here. So this is my main volume that has the code I've been working on, and I got the shared volume that me and Holden and Joe have been populating over the past month. Hold on, yeah, I know. Hold on, let me try to zoom in a little bit. I noticed it was a little blurry early on. Can you see that at all? I mean, it's not this screen that's blurry, it's that one. On the recording, it'll probably be a lot easier to see because it's not projected. But the ability to add more than one volume, very, very convenient for sharing data. There's going to be more sharing features added in the future of this product. This is kind of a first step to just like share data from NFS, but we're going to be adding a lot more like collaboration features in the future, so stay tuned for that. Okay, so kind of moving out of the web view of Workbench, I want to look at some more storage things. So one thing that we've added is the ability to create snapshots. So we got this volume here. I can just easily take a new snapshot. All right, this says new snapshot created. What that has done is take a point in time snapshot of that volume. So if you're using EFS, this actually stores this in S3. If you're using EBS, it uses the AWS snapshot feature that is built into EBS. And this puts that volume into a space that is easily recoverable. It is cheaper to store lots of data in a snapshot than it is highly active. So if you wanted to kind of archive data, that's a good way to do it. Or if you just want to take routine backups of what you've been working on, this is a good way. It's really easy to restore as well. I can just go over here to snapshots. And I've got a bunch of snapshots here. I can just click on that and say new volume from snapshot, give it a name, and within seconds, I have that data restored. There's a lot of things you can do with snapshots that's not really listed on right in your face. You can change availability zones. So if you had two availability zones, like East US 1A, East US 1B, EBS or block storage does not cross availability zones, right? So if your node came up over here and then you had high availability cluster, that's one of the problems we had early on. So taking a snapshot and restoring it can bring that block storage data to availability zones. You can also upgrade the storage type. So if you're running GP2, you can upgrade to GP3 or IO2 or back and forth. IO2 is really expensive, but you can get 10 gigabits per second storage. So maybe you needed a workload that was running that, so you could run that for maybe like an hour or two and then put it back into a lower, cheaper storage. There's just ways to customize like how you use data in the product. Some of those are going to be more documented better, but just letting you know that this is a powerful feature that can get a lot of use. So I just restored that snapshot. I'm going to make a new workbench here. With that, just call it Workbench. And I'm not going to open it in Visual Studio Code. I'm going to open it in one of the other editors in this pane. This is not a very good look. This whole piece is changing for how we're going to be customizing workbenches and what they look like. But for right now, kind of the same model of create a workbench, add storage, and then choose an editor. So we have VS Code, Jupyter Lab, Notebook, and then we have a Python and R environment and a SAS R environment. Legal has kind of preventing us from putting everything in the box together. There's a few hurdles we're working through with the lawyers. But for right now, if you want to program in R, you choose either Python and R or SAS and R. And this puts you into an environment that you can use R code in Workbench. There's a bunch more features coming for R soon, but this is like the first step. We really wanted to get this in the hands of the customers that really wanted it, so you can do that. The other thing is Enterprise Guide. Enterprise Guide comes with every purchase of Workbench right now. Enterprise Guide was launched, I think, in 1999, and it was really groundbreaking for its time. It was the first IDE to really add low code, no code in its CodeFlow Studio, and that's available to launch directly from here. So if I just press Open Enterprise Guide, what's going to happen is I'm going to start a server that doesn't have the VS Code container. It's just the compute server in my cloud. And this follows the same rules, right? So it It has that storage connected to it. It has, the amount of compute I've given it. So this could be, CPU, it could be GPU. And then once that is open, it's going to prompt me to open in Enterprise Guide. And I literally just did this like 30 minutes ago, just to kind of show like how easy it was. It wasn't because I wasn't prepared for this, but I really wanted to show you guys that it's really easy. Just boot it up, okay? And now I'm connected to that Workbench server from a desktop native tool Enterprise Guide. I'm just going to open up, a SAS file here. And this SAS file shows you a lot of things. If it works, come on. There we go. So I'm running data step. In any SAS program is a good data step. Then we've got sgplot, SAS 9 procedure, so is proc glm. Then I've got glm select, reg select, which are Viya procedures, running an A-store. And so I'm mixing SAS 9, I'm mixing Viya procedures, all in the same thing. I've got nice output over here. I can also do things like load flows. So this flow was created in a SAS 9 version of EG, and I just imported it into EG 8.6. Now I can do things like run this flow. It comes up with a prompt. I can choose my distribution chart, run this. This is just going to run and produce the output that I have done through a prompt. Flows, prompting, really powerful things in Enterprise Guide that can bring you right here. There are some things that might not work in this model. Like let's say you have prompts that were gated by metadata server flags. That's not going to work here because there's no metadata server right now on the Workbench server. But the majority of things will just work. I will say that this is the first desktop application that we have ported in this way, because it's been the most asked about. There are a huge EG user base out there. I'm not sure if anybody out there uses EG right now. Yeah, it's a very popular product, and I know a lot of businesses are moving away from running things on your desktop, and maybe they're trying to move away from server SAS 9 into this model. It might be a good migration path into the cloud, but what if you're using Enterprise Miner or Visual Investigator or other desktop applications? Like those could potentially be made to this model if there's demand for it. So if there is, if you see something like a desktop app that you use all the time and you want to run on a server like this that has access to the Viya procedures and that kind of flexible compute, let me know because we could maybe add it to the roadmap. I'm not promising anything, but this shows that this model works really well, and it's not super hard to move from going to an IOM server to a compute server. Okay, so I think, yeah, and then this tab, of course, is going to tell you to close. And once again, once you stop using EG, so I can just close it here. And then the server is going to detect that it no longer has a connection, and it's going to shut down. So we've still got automatic shutdown and those kind of convenience things added in. That concludes what I was going to demonstrate live. So I'm going to flip it back over to Joe Madden. But thanks.
Joseph is right. This is actually the second time where I have told, hey, well, I'll give him 10 minutes and go through it, and I just talk fast and it's 5 minutes. So thanks, Joseph, for ad-libbing there. Joseph did mention about our support and the two different ways to get started. We have a quick GIF on the screen that just shows getting started. At this point, you mentioned it is a short-term solution. We hope that you can at least just bring your code, get it tried if that's something that you're using as a day-to-day. We know that there's going to be a lot of improvements that are becoming soon. So on the improvements front, we talked about Azure. Again, it's going to be very similar to the AWS offering, except that you can go through a public plan. So hopefully that will get it in your hands even faster. We know many of you, though, have asked about, I have optimization workloads, I have IML, different code base that just relies upon IML or text analytics. All of that is coming to Workbench. It'll be coming soon. The pricing and packaging and availability will be announced in the near future. So definitely stay tuned for that, but we believe it'll be Q2, Q3. Some of the, I think, exciting things, though, coming out that Joseph alluded to, and being able to have a single streamlined environment that, as a developer, you can just continue to customize until your heart's content. Whether it be, I guess, writing Docker Compose statements, adding on database sidecars, things that are a lot more in your day-to-day. If you need to rely upon those tools, they're all going to be within arm's reach within what we call custom environments. This, we believe, is a game changer. It takes the ability of having maybe one version of Python that we provide you today, where you can string up and define what you need based on your project's preference. Joseph talked about power users. That is really what we mean by it. We'll be having many more announcements about that this summer. Maybe on the practical side too, we've heard that some teams just really want to make sure that I need to control costs, or I just as an administrator, I want to have better line of sight into who has access to what, and maybe delegate GPU access down to individuals instead of full teams. So we have per user configuration will be coming out soon. The administrator screen, if you have not seen Workbench, has been slowly growing content and features over time. What we'd want to do is give an administrator less reason to have to go to the AWS portal or your Azure portal to look at costs, because we know you probably don't have time to do that. Many admins we talk to are really just SAS users who have become admins over the years. For those folks, this is what it's all about. You shouldn't have to worry about Kubernetes. You just want to make sure that your users are running and they're productive. The last thing in near term is our wrappers, or that might sound like a confusing term if you're not familiar, but what we showed earlier was Python wrappers, where you can use Python to call the SAS analytics. You'll soon be able to run R code that calls native Python, or excuse me, R code that calls native SAS analytics. So for example, the log select function, you can use R code and you can still generate all the same features, functions like the ODS output using R code. We're really excited about that one. I know the econometrics team has work in place where that type of use case is bread and butter, where people use R all day. We want to bring what we have as best of both worlds to that type of community. One of our larger feedback pieces we've heard, though, is I want to just run this thing on a schedule. We know that SAS has a lot of scheduling tools available today. And our intention is to make it that if you can set up a job in Workbench, run it on a schedule. We know that there's a lot of different ways in SAS tools to be able to do that today. We've been slowly going through this, trying to capture your feedback, because everyone's job scheduling is maybe a little bit different, or everyone has a slightly different need. So what we're trying to do is make sure we don't rush that feature. But that also means like a headless way to just interact with an API as well. We just know that these types of tools are invaluable, but in us being able to demonstrate and deliver progress, we've had to, well, pragmatically step through this. So for someone like Joseph, I know we often have a lot of dynamic of, we could release the feature now, or we could go out the door with it, or maybe wait and improve. This is an example where we're certainly going to try to have a more full-on release, and you'll see a much more well-defined feature set coming out for scheduling. We have a lot of other big, broader topics that you'll see in future SAS events. Viya as a service is a bit of a teaser for where Viya 4 is going, and being able to use, say, split plane architecture with Viya 4. The Workbench will work seamlessly as we go forward into the future. So you might be wondering, well, how does SAS Studio fit into all of this? The point is, it doesn't matter how you want to code with SAS. It's that you just be able to run your workloads, regardless whether it's Enterprise Guide, SAS Studio, VS Code. It just is going to work. I joined SAS 3 years ago and was a little bit just curious about just why are there so many different ways to code in different tools. The goal is, it doesn't matter how you got here. We want it to work and how it's going to stay in the future. One of the, I guess, final pieces, though, before we close out is, we've heard customers who are in government. We know that FedRAMP is just something that is super important. At this point today, we are not FedRAMP certified, but we want to hear that feedback. We want to hear your use cases, because we are taking on that journey. We're working with our AWS partners, as well as on Azure front as well. That's, we know something mission critical and, well, it needs a must have. And that's the type of thing where we've heard that from our customers, and it helped appear on our roadmap very quickly. So with that, I want to open it up for Q&A, because you may hopefully have some questions, and maybe we have some questions online as well about, where could we be going next, or if maybe you want to see something again that we showed.
All right, thanks, Joe. We do have one from the virtual viewers. Are there any plans to have Workbench available in AWS Gov?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I'm glad that question came up. Yeah, so the FedRAMP, that is it. Like being able to put our service in the Gov Cloud, I believe that is called FedRAMP High, if I'm not mistaken, and that is where we're heading. But likely it's a not a quick process, so we don't want to say that it'll likely would be going into next year. Good question.
Thank you. First of all, it's a nice presentation. I have a quick question regarding the architecture. Just trying to understand, what kind of engine, it uses at the back end for the execution. From the architecture perspective, like whether it is a MPP-based architecture, which is similar to CAS engine, which is in memory and massively parallel distributed processing, right, on both the data as well as the analytical processing. So, I mean, whether it is advisable to run the job which has maybe large volume of data.
Question. As best I can, let me know if this answers it. So what is running on the back end is what's called the compute server. This is basically a SAS session with an HTTP front end. And everything so this runs in one SAS session. This is not creating like multiple sessions and different nodes like in CAS, but you can take advantage of all the CAS parallelism. Right, so any algorithm that is embarrassingly parallel, which are many of them that are, right, can spread out as many cores as you give them. I mean, typically embarrassingly parallel algorithms cap out at around like 16 to like 32 threads. So you will get speed ups until about that point. Data loads that require more I/O than an NVMe drive can give you do benefit from CAS balancing of data across multiple nodes, the MPP architecture. We have found that is about 1% of jobs that are out there. So the model with putting everything in SMP and just using threading to get parallel speedups has been, covers the vast majority of jobs. So if you are in one of those use cases where you're using deep learning across petabytes of data, then CAS is definitely 100% the answer for you for that. We are adding session support into our SMP model in Workbench, which means you'll be able to do things like model tournaments and auto-tuning that require the CAS sessions. That is coming to Workbench soon. But that's how it runs. It is one server, but it can be parallelized out to as many threads as you can give it. And all of the CAS actions are running natively in SAS. They're not being called out to a separate server. That's one of the big things that we brought to the Workbench model. So it's the exact same thing that's running in the Python libraries, actually, that's running in the SAS. Does that answer your question?
Well, I do see that our actual resident experts are sitting in the back right now on the particular auto-tuning topic. So for multiple session support, I guess.
Oh, that is Ralph.
George and Ralph. Yeah, I might. Yeah, hey guys. Thanks for joining. Those guys are truly architects behind some of the model-specific stuff. So give them a question if you need to. Yeah, any other questions here? Oh, George is going to give some. Thank you. George Silva is Director of Machine Learning and AI.
Sorry for the impromptu cameo.
Please.
Everybody. So the answer to your question is, like Joseph has said, for most cases, you do not need the distributed massively parallel infrastructure. But when you do, it's there for you. So the CAS server did not go away. And you can use it from the Viya deployment.
That's it. Thanks, George. That's right. I mean, so for someone who's not familiar with CAS, you don't really need to learn CAS in this world. But as you learn it, you'll see the benefits of it. You're like, oh my gosh, like life is now different having used it. The goal, though, is for Workbench is lower the barrier to get started, and all your code just is meant to work.
Got a few more virtual ones.
Sure.
For Python, are there plans to integrate with Polars as an addition
Love the
to
question.
support Pandas data frame?
Yes, I'm so glad we got the question. I think I know who maybe submitted that online. One of our Power SAS user groups, hopefully.
Quentin?
Or yeah, Ahmed, I think. But yeah, polars, we learned about polars from some of the folks at this conference a couple years ago, or at least I know I did. And polars currently relies upon PyArrow as a requirement, and that's something that's not available today, but it's not on our roadmap screen, but it certainly is something that we are excited to unveil because polars can make working with data frames a lot faster and more stable. Awesome question.
I got another one that's being upvoted in here. Will you be able to pick up any jobs created in Workbench in the workflows for VI and VDMML?
So VDMML is kind of an old phrase. Like that was, is visual design and machine learning, right? That isn't really an offering anymore. But the machine learning procedures that were available in VDMML are available in Workbench. I mean, I think 90%, right? And they're almost all of them are on the roadmap to be ported as a procedure. Our goal is to put every action into a procedure, and then the ones that are needed, wrap those in Python classes as well. So the visual design part, Workbench is so you've heard of low code. Workbench is what we call yes code. It is not going to be a huge delivery of visuals. Where our primary goal is not to make it a low code environment. It's make it the best development environment possible. That could involve some low code things, but our goal is to make your coding experience the best you can get.
Yeah.
But like I mentioned earlier, SAS 9 desktop applications that are popular and in demand, they could be ported the same way we saw EG. Oh, speaking of EG, I forgot to mention the release date. It's coming out EG 8.6. It's releasing in June. So the connection to Workbench is available in EG 8.6.
They're coming out super soon. Maybe one thing on the NFS support that Joseph showed, even if you have a flow that maybe cannot directly connect or run in Workbench today, you post the output to your NFS drive, and now you're working with Workbench. That is something that was not available when we first came live, but it is available now. So, and again, that was a customer-specific ask, and we're glad that it came forward. Are there a question in the room?
Thank you. The idea of taking SAS actions and procedures and putting our wrappers around them.
Yeah.
Is there any chance that would leak out the way SAS Pi does, and be decoupled from the Viya Workbench offering? So we could use it with our SAS 9 that we have?
The last part I'm not.
Wait, hold on. Repeat that last piece.
So you know how today you have SAS Pi?
Yeah.
That even in a SAS 9 environment, you can write a Python program and then make some calls to SAS.
Yeah.
Using Python-like syntax.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're going to do that with R.
Okay, so there is a very different view of SAS Pi and the SAS Viya Python package. SAS Pi was a connector to SAS. So you would use Python to send signals in code to a SAS session. So you needed a SAS session running. This could be a server, this could be local, could be a compute or a IOM session, right? But there was a network connection to a server for SAS Pi actions. It did the serialization between data frames to data step and whatever. But it's just like SWAT as well. You needed a server running, so you put a URL to connect to. That still works. You can use SAS Pi and Workbench, but the model for the SAS Viya package was serverless, right? This is running in the kernel that you're running, so everything is native. So all the C bindings to our actions are there, and it loads natively. So you don't need a session. That's because the actions are decoupled from the actual SAS memory space. I mean, the logistic regression is a logistic regression, right? Cardinality is cardinality. We're just providing the algorithms and the access and the convenience of those classes in Python. So, I mean, the answer to your question, isn't really no, but it's just not really applicable because they're completely different models.
I do want to set a little bit of expectations too about running the R wrappers in SAS 9 directly is likely not going to be something we focus on, and that you'd see these wrappers available in Viya 4 and Workbench. And likely beyond that too, this is something where we're expanding on, could these wrappers for Python or R, could they run in a native Snowflake environment that you're just calling SAS Analytics outside of all of these worlds? Yeah. The SAS 9 part, like that's something I think we've said things in the past that, hey, maybe we're not going to do it. We've pivoted and changed course, so keep talking to us about that. We want to learn more about like how are you using SAS 9 today, and like why are you guys using R? I think like that's the like what about it? I think we're curious.
I think maybe one more question
Sure.
from our virtual friends.
Yeah.
How does the Workbench handle different skill levels within a team? Are there features that cater to both experienced SAS users and those newer to the Viya environment?
Yes. So the ones who are newer to the Viya environment, for those folks who likely were trained on Python in school and never used SAS before, that's what the Python wrappers are all about, is that you're not really having to learn about syntax. You get to actually focus on the parameters and some of the nuance that SAS brings that is extremely value add. I'm sure. I feel like there was probably more. There was more to that question, wasn't there?
Well, I mean, skill levels in programming is a lot, right? Probably the best programmer or the worst programmer is like probably 100 to 1, you know? So, I mean, we're not going to fit every demographic, but like I said before, our goal with Workbench is to provide the best development environment we can to developers, data scientists, programmers.
Well, as a vibe coder, I think you described that me as that. I fall into that camp. Copilots are pretty necessary, right? And we know Copilot has been shared across the board, like here at the event. And you don't see Copilot on our roadmap here today, but that is the plan. There's no reason why they can't integrate. We want to get our pricing straight before we get this out in front of y'all. So you'll see Copilot coming into Viya 4 world first, and hopefully that'll make for the new folks who are learning SAS syntax, learning what a SAS procedure is. The Copilot's pretty cool.
Yeah, but I mean, my goal really is to make the experience as easy as possible. So I mean, all the things like setting certain variables that you don't have to manually set up, doing automatic things. I really want to make that first experience as easy as possible. So yes, new people can come in and not get any errors. Just click run and it works. That's my goal. But then people that are power users can come in and create crazy graphs and charts with ODS and do MP Connect and whatever, right? Whatever you want to do, whether it's low level or high level, we want to be able to put it in your plate. And Joe had mentioned the environment stuff. This is, I really think it's going to be a game-changing feature. I was really hoping to get it ready for this conference, but sometimes you just don't win them all. But this summer we're going to be dropping a lot of information for that. I really think it's going to make it more than just a SAS tool, the general purpose development environment.
All right, that's all we have time for today, so let's give these guys a big round of applause. Thank you all.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you.